Oi, what's the best game where you get to eat pie? What's the best game where you play a dead guy? You'll find out in VG247's podcast. Here, what's the best game where you swing from a rope? And what's the best game where you batter the Pope? Assassin's Creed 2. Like I said, you will find out in this here podcast. Hello and welcome to VG247's Best Games Ever podcast, where we attempt to find the best game within an extremely specific category that we've conjured out of nothing for SEO purposes. For example, this week, we're looking for the best 6 out of 10 that's better than The Last of Us. I've since been informed, since starting this recording session, that the website I work for doesn't really issue 6 out of 10s because we do it on a, on a 5-point scale.
Well, you tried.
But all of our 3-star reviews get converted into 6 out of 10s for Metacritic. So we do, in a sense, issue 6 out of 10s, but unwittingly. So I still think it fits. And I've always been a big fan of the idea that within the sort of 10-point review scale, you can have like good 7 out of 10s, which are better than shit 9s. Does anyone else
in a weird way?
In a weird way. Like me and Steve Burns used to talk about it all the time. Right, okay. So we're just going to get into it. Donaldson, what is your pick for this one?
This is a funny category. I started leafing through what VG247 had given 3 out of 5, but then I just decided to go with my heart. And so I picked Death Stranding.
Ooh, controversial.
I was looking for something close to The Last of Us, and my thinking was, so it's a Sony exclusive with all the prestige and with incredible like performance capture and voice work and all that sort of stuff.
Checks out.
But here's the thing: The Last of Us, in my opinion, is like an okay game with what is basically a pretty standard, well delivered, but pretty standard sort of Hollywood style narrative for that sort of world. And basically the reason people are so impressed with it is because it's so technical accomplished and it's so filmic. You know, it's so much like a film. It's the sort of game that gamers get a hard on for because it's just like playing a movie. Yeah. But then the flip side is The Last of Us also has all those terrible ladder puzzles and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, it's not all sugar and rainbows, right? And then when I think about Death Stranding, I think about this is a game that doesn't always make a lot of sense, but it's this wild, bold, weird, difficult to understand story but it's brave and interesting and tries to have something to say. I don't think Kojima quite knows exactly what he's trying to say, but there's definitely something there. And, you know, and also from a gameplay perspective, it's really interesting and really, and also from a gameplay perspective, sorry, my phone keeps going. Jim's going to cut this out, but allow me to say to the audience, my phone keeps going, and it's one of those people who cuts through the do not disturb. So even though I'm on do not disturb, it's ringing, even though the text message sent said nothing urgent. Like the reason I have you on the pass through do not disturb is so you can reach me if it is urgent. Anyway, the thing about it is it's got interesting concepts and ideas. And gameplay wise, there's nothing out there quite like it. Of course, to the point where Kojima quite famously said it's a new genre, it's the Strand game. And that's it really. It's like they're two very different games that are coming from the same place, and that place is to try to create a filmic Hollywood experience in the world of video games. However, while The Last of Us is, you know, when push comes to shove, if you're really getting down to it, The Last of Us is on paper the better game, I guess. I got far more out of Death Stranding because of how original and weird and quirky and crazy it is. And yet, without a shadow of a doubt, Death Stranding isn't that good. So it's full on a really interesting 6 out of 10. And so that's why I felt like it was perfect for this category, because it's got so much interesting stuff going on, and like the face capture and motion capture and all that sort of stuff that they do with the Decima engine in that game is incredible. And the PC version that they released, really good, and a load of like it supports DLSS and all that stuff, so you can get crazy high frame rates and stuff on the PC version. But yeah, it just comes down to one of these games is really interesting and unique, and one of them is perhaps a little bit less so. And I think The Last of Us is great, but I will absolutely, the people who act like it's like a major narrative milestone in general, it's like, I'll give you that it's narratively very impressive and very well done and very well executed for a video game. The sequel probably even better, in my opinion, because of the brave swings that it takes with what it does with characters and stuff.
Yeah.
But we've also seen stories like that quite a lot before in 28 Days Later and Walking Dead and all that sort of stuff.
And also the first game is very Naughty Dog. It's basically fucking Citalopram Uncharted, isn't it?
Yeah, with stealth. And it's like the stealth is decent, but then it's like all the fetch a ladder, push a pallet across water.
Yeah,
all that
and
crap. Like,
the stealth is sort of fudged a little bit because like the zombies can't see your companions, for example.
Yeah.
Because they cannot make those systems work together, and so they simply do not work together. They're engineered to not interact.
They did rework all that in the remaster.
Did they?
They did. A little bit. But
I reviewed the remaster, and I feel like I'm being attacked slightly in this podcast because actually, I think I'm not like, I was never like a Last of Us like fanboy or anything, or an apologist. Like, I love it, it's so brilliant, etc. But it is actually quite brilliant. And I think I agree that it's maybe not the most original story, but I think it is better than like I think it actually does stand up to like some good TV, like particularly the way it handles the characters and the way that you sort of spend time with them and things. Like I don't think it's any means like it's not like the best film you've ever seen or anything, but I think
it's good at all that stuff.
I think they handle it very well, particularly the way, and in the remake, you get a lot more expression and stuff, which goes a long way to making you like these people a lot more. And I actually didn't even mind the puzzles too much in the remake. I don't know if they tweaked them much or not, but it didn't bother me. Like I remember the first game, it was all people were talking about was lifting the ladders around, moving the ladders, but it just, they're there in it, but I didn't really find them that.
They're slightly shit puzzles though that break up where the goal of them really is to pad out the game. It's like Star Fox games having fucking on foot sections, because if you just have the on rail shooting, the game's over in an hour, and so they pad it out with this crap now. And obviously it's not that egregious, but when you see that same puzzle for like the third, fourth time, you're like, ugh. And it's like, yeah, I absolutely agree. Like the way they do the characters and stuff, this is why they've been able to make this HBO show and it immediately looks like so faithful. This is why Neil Druckmann has been able to go and direct an episode of the HBO show despite never having directed for TV or film before, because the work they did is so filmic. And I don't deny any of that. But I'm just like, when I'm thinking about my pure raw enjoyment, yes, The Last of Us made me a little bit emotional towards the end. However, I just appreciate more playing a video game where there are characters literally called things like Dead Man and Die Hard Man and Mama.
I think Death Stranding is one of these perfect examples of where these like scores can kind of intersect and have like scales within themselves.
Has it got a 6 out of 10, just to be clear? Has it definitely got a 6 out of 10 somewhere?
I'm willing to accept that if Donaldson feels that it's 6 out of 10, then...
Who did?
Kurt gave it 3.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it was a VG247. 3 out of 5.
There, didn't he? Classic Kirk.
Smashing.
Kirk describes it as interesting, incredibly pretty, and kind of dull, which perfectly sums it up.
Smashing. Yeah, I mean, there we go. And it's one of these things where you can see the merit, you can see the obvious pedigree that's gone into it, the brilliant kind of the sheer vision of it, an astounding take on some kind of afterlife apocalypse delivery driver nonsense box starring Jeff Keighley. It's mental, right? And I'm glad that it exists, but I mean, I think it's crap. So you can say, I can definitely be like, oh, that's a solid 6 out of 10. Whereas, like, I really like The Last of Us, but I think it's a shit 9.
It's the interesting thing about this topic, because I don't believe The Last of Us is a 6 out of 10. But like you said at the start, it's like, for me, Death Stranding is a 6 out of 10 that in its way is better than that 8-9 out of 10 that is The Last of Us.
Yeah,
basically.
And it's insane how that works. All right, who have we got next? James, your suggestion is, you know what, right? And I'm going to preface this by saying, when you sent me your suggestion, I was like, what the fuck is that? And I had to Google it, which speaks to like the level of cultural impact it's had since launch. Go ahead.
So apparently I've come in with a bit of a hot take here that The Last of Us is quite good, because we've kind of attacked it a little bit, and you've spoken and you've kind of made the point that the like absolute bargain basement performances in Death Stranding, which are the absolute worst part of it, and the only good part of that game is the Bring Me the Horizon song. And you're kind of comparing that to the Last of Us, where you've got stuff like the opening, which is completely iconic, and everybody loves that sort of stuff. So to try and be faithful to the topic and choose a true 6 out of 10 game that, as we have kind of covered, in its way is better than The Last of Us. The main criticism that I would have of The Last of Us is that you have some of the shooting is perhaps a little bit gluey, and you can say that like in a Resident Evil game, the sort of intense frenetic action performed by an inexpert protagonist is a really important part of the horror, and you would be completely correct in that. So it's a bit of a bollocks criticism anyway, but I've chosen to go very specifically with saying that the shooting in this terrible game is better than the shooting in The Last of Us. And before Forspoken comes to take its crown, I've come with the most recent Western Square Enix flop, and that is Outriders. A game that I could talk about for hours on end.
See what I mean?
I could talk about Outriders for hours and hours, because just like the Death Stranding, it is an absolutely baffling game that has just got so many strange decisions but brilliant moments, and so much verve and great ideas and obvious talent put into it, but just in a package that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I think the headline of a preview that I wrote for it was something like Outriders is full of brilliant moments and strange ideas, or whatever, or brilliant ideas and strange decisions. Yeah. And you get stuff like so for anyone that doesn't know, Outriders is, well, most people probably don't know because it was, as you say, a bit of a flash in the pan, but it is a third person action game or third person shooter in the similar vein to Gears of War, made by People Who Can Fly, who did Gears of War Judgment, which was like kind of Gears of War 3.5, I think. And it's 3-player co-op, and you play on a distant world that's been colonized by this Earth expeditionary force after Earth is going to blow up because we're dumb or some shit. And you land, and a magic lightning storm gives you all superpowers, essentially. And you can be a lightning dude, you can be a fire person, you can shoot mud at stuff.
You can shoot mud at stuff.
While the kind of story is like Armageddon on steroids, it's very much, I remember a lot of the previews of this were saying like, this is a very mature, this is a very interesting and grown up story. And then you get to it, and the tone is absolutely all over the place. You'll have a sort of swelling string, sort of intense conversation between two people, and then you'll just be like reloading your guns by twirling them in your fingers and going bang, 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 and all that sort of stuff within sort of 2 minutes of each other. And it does weird things like when you'll have like a really intense firefight, and then you'll see a collectible, and you go up and collect that, and your character will just sort of go, a journal. like he's Homer Simpson wiggling his fingers over a donut about to pick it up or whatever. And it's like, and one of the things that really sticks out to me with the obvious talent in design that they have is like the legendary weapons that are ubiquitous in these sort of games, that you have these overpowered, they shoot lightning, they shoot flames, they shoot all this sort of stuff, but you don't get any of that stuff within the game, within like the main story of the game, which is the whole game, because another of their big points with this was that it's not a live service game. It's a great story that you're going to play through, you're going to love, you're going to enjoy, and then you get to the end and there's some end game activities, but the story is what you're coming for. And all of these amazing legendary weapons that are some of the best stuff about the game, they're not in the story, they're in the end game bit, which is the bit that you're just supposed to kind of play for a bit and then, that was fun. Anyway, the reason I've chosen this game is because the shooting is absolutely fantastic. It is some of the most frenetic, engaging, temple-burstingly engrossing gameplay that you can get, because the way that the difficulty works is that you have a progress bar that fills up as you defeat enemies throughout the game. And once you reach that progress bar fills up, the game gets harder, everything gets more difficult. So, and when you die, the progress bar gets set back a bit. And so the game is balanced exactly as hard as you can take it at all times, which means it is just eye-poppingly, temple-grayingly just intense at all times. And in that sense, it is better than Last of Us in terms of the mechanical shooting part of it. That you can just feel your life force ebbing away through the pure cortisol, sucking it up as you just raging through these monster closets as you just press the space bar through all of the dialogue and you get to the next shooting bit. If you haven't played it, it's a great game for something like Game Pass, which it was on for a bit, because you can play these really, really intense, really engaging, really just kind of evening sucking, destroying shoot 'em ups, and then you can just kind of bin it off when your body literally can't take anymore. But it's just it's a really weird game. It is a true 6 out of 10 because it's so weird and strange and just a bit janky. And but the mechanical shooting of it, which People Can Fly have kind of taken from their work on Gears of War and all of that sort of stuff, it's just fantastic in that very, very specific degree. And I think that is The Last of Us' weakest point, and therefore Outriders is a 6 out of 10 game that is better than The Last of Us in that regard.
It's quite a good choice, I'd say.
I've never heard a better pitch for a Western flop from Square Enix.
It's kind of a shame that people can, because they used to make Painkiller, right, back years ago, and Painkiller is like kind of a more gothic-y, Serious Sam type thing, and I love those games, and they were, again, all about the combat, really, right? So I think they can do that really well, but their games have always been a bit janky. I think that when they've got the live servicey stuff and like a serious story and all these things, that they feel a bit like they're not quite there yet, but maybe they will get there if they stick around long enough. But yeah, I'm quite impressed, James.
It's very sad that they, like, there was that news story right recently where they just straight up admitted, well, it was to their shareholders, I guess, right, but they just hadn't made any money on that game because they hadn't crossed the threshold at which Square Enix would start paying them royalties.
That's a shame.
But that's just what Square Enix seems to do in the West, right? That they spend tens of millions of pounds, and it probably is tens of millions of pounds.
They put out a lot of shit, but they're also experts at making the least out of everything they do.
People Can Fly. What else have they done again? The
Gears of War Judgment. So it's like
what was it? No, what was it? Bulletstorm.
Bulletstorm, yeah. Again, another game that there's like,
because that was sort of their.
Yeah, again, it felt a bit too janky to be like big AAA, but that was at EA, right? I think Bulletstorm was that an EA?
Yeah, and that
thing?
was really their big coming out party. Like people liked Painkiller and all that sort of stuff. And I know they worked on like the PC port of the first Gears game and stuff like that. But it was really Bulletstorm where like they came out and they were like, we're the hot new studio, we're the new Epic, Bungie, whatever. And it didn't quite go there.
Right, Tom, what have you got for us?
I mean, I think I've got a better choice than James even. I'm just getting rid of Alex's choice because we all know that's not going to win. But, so I was thinking originally, like, just what are the games that everyone seems to bang on about being brilliant, even though they're obviously a bit shit. So I was thinking, right, Binary Domain, actually, it is just shit. It's not that good.
I've been thinking about Binary Domain all the way through this.
I just don't like it. I've tried playing it numerous times. I don't want any discussion about it. It's just not very good, right?
It's a great
the other one,
game.
no, I said no discussion about it. The next one, Alpha Protocol. Again, everyone's like, "Oh, it's such a good game."
That is a really good game. Fuck off, Sam.
I knew you'd gone about it, but it's just not good. It's just not good. Like it is a 6 out of 10 at best, right? And I was thinking, right, and then I got thinking, like James is thinking, right, Last of Us. Combat is the one thing people moan about often. What's like a really good shooter, but I can somehow hope someone has badly scored, so I've got evidence that it's 6 out of 10. So I was like, right, Vanquish. Vanquish is a brilliant shooter, some of the best shooting mechanics in any game ever.
Yeah.
Makes you feel really cool. Doesn't give much of a shit about anything else apart from being cool. No one's given that a 6 out of 10, right? No one. And then I was like, looking through Metacritic, oh, look. My good friend Matt Kim, former colleague at US Gamer, gave it a 3 out of 5. So that counts. 6 out of 10. Vanquish is a 6 out of 10 game that really is not a 6 out of 10, but I'm going with it because that's what this one.
So you've just admitted your choice is
you yourself
legitimately
do not consider it a 6 out of 10.
I don't. It's clearly a much better game than that, but as evidenced by the score on US Gamer, which is still at the moment visible on the internet.
No, I don't think this is in the spirit of the topic, Tom.
It's a 6 out of 10 game. It's evidence of it. You can't argue against that.
Yeah, it's a 6 out of 10 game in the same sense that Far Cry 6 is Game of the Year.
It's the same. Bloody, what Metacritic is Death Stranding on? But it's on like 84 or something. It's something ridiculous. You can't have this as an argument.
Death Stranding has massive 6 out of 10 energy, despite what anything says on
If
Metacritic.
we're really going to get down into this, yeah, it is in the 80s.
See,
but it's in the low 80s. However, if you dive into the critic reviews, and I do think we as an industry, like get into this can of worms, tend to score quite high. But if you look, like legitimately. Edge was a 6, The Gamer was a 6, Gaming Bible was a 6, Digital Spy was a 6, We Were a 6, Video Games Chronicle was a 6, Giant Bomb was a 4, Game Rant was a 4. So there's sort of, there's a lot of...
it's irrelevant. It's got a high Metacritic. Vanquish has a 6 out of 10 on record. It's there for everyone to see.
One single 6 out of 10.
7 6 out of 10.
Oh.
It's a 6 out of 10, right? So
a single 6 out of 10, which you yourself have publicly declared is wrong.
It is wrong because we're saying all of these are wrong, really, aren't we? If we're saying they're better than a 9 out of 10 rated video game,
no, we're saying that there's 6 out of 10 that are better than 9 out of 10 rated Last of Us.
6 out of 10, 3 out of 5 rated Vanquish has incredible combat, right? I think it's one of those games that even the high scores it got probably weren't good enough because it was the Platinum games that were like full on like peak of their like we're super cool game studio making super cool games, and it's just you can't play this game.
It was the hipster studio of the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you can't play it and not feel like you're really cool at video games and really good because it just promotes being a really like you're sliding around on your knees doing flip kicks and
you do
all
cool
over the place.
flips and
it's just amazingly cool looking game, looks great, runs great, probably doesn't run great on the PS3, nothing did, but everything else brilliant, and it works really well on Steam Deck as well. Just throw that in there if you've got a deck, get it on that. It's like £4. Brilliant game that I think as a if we're gonna go as a game, it is better than Outriders, right? A pure game. This is like the purest of all games. Vanquish. Yeah, it has got a 6 out of 10, so it does.
If you were trying to pick a 6 out of 10, You were trying to pick a 6 out of 10 game while you slide on your knees. Are you sure that you weren't trying to pick the 2009 Bethesda third-person action game Wet?
No, I wasn't.
That's a good 6 out of 10.
I might have reviewed that game, and again, that has some cool moments, but that's like we're not
Positive
quite.
you reviewed that game. I think I was there when you reviewed it.
We're not the same. It's not the same level of like craftsmanship as in Vanquish, right? Vanquish is like a proper like particularly if you're in games media, you go, oh yeah, Vanquish, brilliant game. That no one else has ever heard of it. Probably sold about 10,000 copies in its whole life.
I'm pretty sure we had a big discussion about whether or not Eliza Dushku is as much of a box office draw as the people who made Wet were banking on.
Maybe.
And we concluded
I can't remember that far back.
I don't even know who that is.
We concluded that she was not.
I don't remember who she is other than she was in a TV program.
She's been in a lot of like Josh Whedon things, which the less said about the better. So
can I just posit that if you Google Vanquish, Steam 9 out of 10, and if you Google Death Stranding, Steam 9 out of 10, and if you Google Outriders, Steam 6 out of 10.
Yeah, but then you have to think about, is it actually better than The Last of Us? And it clearly isn't.
Specifically, if you want to rapidly age yourself like the kids in Akira, then yes.
Well, yeah, but right, okay. Technical point here that you said it is better in one respect, being the shooting, the combat.
Yeah.
So
it's better than The Last of Us in that specific
it's better in that specific respect, right? But like, I don't know, like I'm better at editing videos than Muhammad Ali would have been, right?
Congratulations.
We don't know that. That's just speculation.
I mean, I'm just assuming, right?
Has he ever practiced? I'm sure he could be good.
But right, so we need to get down into the like. So
if I don't win this, it's going to be unbelievable. I'm sorry.
One
There'll be
specific respect.
Riots on
You've
Twitter
picked
about
a 6
this.
out of 10 that you don't even agree is a 6 out of 10.
I'm not saying
right?
that wasn't. I didn't say that what you personally think is 6 out of 10, was it? That's not the topic.
It doesn't show much faith in your own choice if you disagree with the one review that lets it squeak into the topic. You publicly disagree with it.
I was part of the hiring team that hired Matt Kim on US Gamer. So there is a link.
So you endorse it by sort of proxy.
I don't endorse it. I still think it's not an accurate review. But for the purpose of this podcast, this makes this a legitimate choice.
All right, but Donaldson's choice and James's choice are both like, I mean, both of those people emphatically feel that those games are 6 out of 10.
I think they're just saying that to make themselves look good in this podcast.
There's no
My
question
opinion
about
on
it.
Death Stranding is well on the record. My opinion on Kojima in general.
We've not even got to talk about the Leo Saidu scale yet.
I mean, all right, well, look, I've got to pick something. Once again, it's a really difficult one, but I would say, despite Tom's protestations, right, I would say that Tom's edged it this week. Because because all right, there is a little bit of a grey area about whether or not it counts as a 6 out of 10.
No, there isn't.
If the person submitting it does, but we'll put that aside for the moment. And I think Vanquish wins on the basis that it is on record as being 6 out of 10 from at least one outlet, right? And so I'll let it sneak in on that technicality, and also, it's got to be the best game out of these three, right? Surely?
Clearly. The other two are rubbish.
This is an absolute travesty, and
Yeah, this is a miscarriage of justice.
This is like when Sauron makes the ring. He tricks everybody else.
No,
he
he
tricks everybody else into making these rings of power, and he wants one for himself. And now that you've allowed him to become too powerful by letting him by letting him bend the rules, the rules are never going to stay straight ever again.
I didn't. There was no bending. They were straight down the line on the rules.
We didn't define like how you define a 6 out of 10. We didn't put that. We didn't codify that in the rules. So on that basis, I allow it. But I will say, Tom, this is a very slightly hollow win for you.
Don't care. A win's a win. It's like in football. Who cares if the other team had about 80 shots to your 1? If you win, you win.
Well, yeah. Well, fair enough. Yeah.
It's just about the 3 points, isn't it? No one cares.
No winners this time on Takeshi's.
I think I almost understand that because I've been watching Welcome to Wrexham on Disney Plus. Right. Okay. Thanks very much for that, guys. I guess we have to conclude that Vanquish is the best 6 out of 10 that's better than The Last of Us.
It's a miscarriage of justice.
You know when the other characters are really sadly clapping the victor in Smash Bros? This is what that feels like.
Like I said, you will find out in this here podcast.
If you enjoyed the show, please give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. It really helps us get the word out. We're not just a podcast, of course. If you'd like to hear more from the team, then check out VG247.com for our fantastic news coverage, features, reviews, and game guides. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.